Brad Holmes was on fire. When they're available, Brad's going to find you. And when you're veterans, you don't have to sign with another team. As long as you are a vet and you have your accrued seasons, you can say, nah, I'm good. I'm going to stay right here. So the fact that he brought in, all of these players this past weekend that, most of them are vets, I think that speaks volumes to what they believe in and what they think about the Detroit Lions and Brad Holmes, and Dan Campbell. I mean, they all have, a couple of them have former relationships. So the fact that we picked up Jamal Adams is huge, right? Quan Alexander is also big time. A little bit past, maybe their prime, but that doesn't mean anything because experience and being a veteran in this league sometimes is better than all else, right? You've got all the experience and the know-how, you know what's going on, you can fit into a defense, you can make some plays. Just knowing where to be makes you faster on the field. So even though maybe you've dropped a step, you're not as fast as you used to be, whatever. I'm not saying that about Jamal or Quan because I really don't know. But that's been reported, right? Some people reported maybe they've lost a step in their career and they're just not the same player. And that's why he was on a practice squad that I love. I think Jamal Adams might be the guy that makes the biggest impact this season. But I do believe that Quan Alexander is going to help this team out a lot. The Rams got really, really good this offseason. They completely upgraded their defensive line all over the place. So when you look at a guy like Jonah Williams that maybe didn't make the squad, I think you have to look at why, right? They brought in Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, and others, right? Even though Aaron Donald retired, and stick that name in the back of your cap, right? Because this is a guy that Jonah Williams played next to. This is a guy that Jonah Williams learned from. And those are the types of guys that when you're coming up in a league that you need as a veteran in front of you that not only does it as the best in the league, but somebody that is a teacher, someone that can help you get better at your craft. So Jonah was kind of up against it with the Rams, right? I mean, they upgraded their defense all over the place, and he couldn't make the squad this year. Still ended up on the practice squad, but he couldn't make the 53. You look at the Lions roster, right? And I think when you look at the Lions roster, number one, it's a vision that Dan Campbell has about the roster. It's a vision that Brad Holmes has about the roster, that everybody on this roster is going to play. So you can't discredit the guys that are on the practice squad and think that, well, they're just vet squad. They're just practice squad guys. They're not really going to help us. You'd be wrong. Maybe on other teams, but not on this team. And I will tell you this, I think some of the other teams around the league have adopted that same strategy that, maybe Jonah Williams didn't help him out immediately because he wasn't on the 53, but he's a guy that has played, to your credit, to your point. He was a starter last year, all right? He got in quite a few games. So, yeah, I think that he is someone that could help out this team for the future. I absolutely believe that. There is a possibility that if he does get in and really starts helping the Lions out this season, that maybe there'd be an opportunity for him to come back. There's stuff, but I kind of walk through what he's done in his career and kind of where he's been. So Williams was signed by the Rams as an undrafted free agent following the 2020 draft. Okay. He was waived on September 4 of 2020 during final roster day cuts, and then was subsequently signed to the team's practice squad one day later. And then Williams was signed a future reserves contract that January. So after the season was over for the Rams that January, he signed a reserves future. Minnesota Vikings is where he ended up after that. So in 2021, he was claimed off of waivers by the Vikings, but then he was waived the next day for failing his physical. So that was a little concerning. Is that, when he was on the roster that early in 2020 with the Rams and then, waived and sent down to the practice squad, was there issues with his conditioning? What was going on there is my question. Has it been figured out? And then he came back to LA. So obviously LA had, thought that maybe whatever happened before wasn't going to happen again. But he was claimed off of waivers and sent to the Rams practice squad. Williams won his first Super Bowl ring that and then after the Rams in 2021, he went back to the Vikings. So he has 2 stints with the Rams, 2 stints with the Vikings. And so on March 18th of 2024, Williams was signed by the Minnesota Vikings to return for a second time. And then he was waived that August and then re-signed to the practice squad. And then guess what? He goes back to the Rams for a third stint this season in October of 2024. He was signed back to the active roster off of the Vikings practice squad. Obviously, the Rams were dealing with some injuries this season, and that's why he went back. And now he's with your Detroit Lions. But what I like about the guys that Brad Holmes has been bringing in is, if you notice, the size, right? If you look at the size of the guys we're bringing in, what is he, 6'5", 257 or something like that? Or 275, 6'5", 275. So bigger guys. When you look at him, he looks lean. Does not look like he has an ounce of fat on him. And he can move. So Weber State College. So small-time school, making it in 1 second. So Super Bowl winner, Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. He was a 2 times first team All Big Sky in 2018 and 2019, and second team All Big Sky in 2017. So look, he's been around it. He's played some good ball in his day. He's a pretty good player. I like his attitude. I tried to find some interviews of him, some that I can't play because of where they were at, but sounds pretty down to earth, pretty decent dude. So I'm excited to see what he does. So Brad Holmes was very busy. He addressed the defense, all over the place this past weekend. And again, when you look at what Brad has done, I think that this tells you guys one thing and one thing, only. Like, this is a Super Bowl run for this team. Like, we're expected to go all the way. We are expected to go not just deep in the playoffs, but we're expected to get there. Like, this is us in New Orleans. We're supposed to be there this season. And he's going all out to try to bring in anybody and everybody he can. I mean, with the trade deadline over, Miles Adams from the Seattle Seahawks. And he was brought in, I believe, on Saturday, if memory serves me correct. But anyway, he's an intriguing addition to this team as well. He comes with 4 years of experience playing with the Seahawks since entering the league as an undrafted free agent. He's played in 26 career games, including 3 this season for Seattle. One of those games was against the Lions. But he adds a good defensive tackle rotation next to Ali McNeil. He was another undrafted participant, right, out of the combine and out of the draft. So undrafted rookie. Adams entered the league in 2019. He faced the typical challenges as an undrafted player, spending time on practice squads with the Carolina Panthers and the Seattle Seahawks. Adams finally found more of a stable role with the Seahawks, if you will. He played in, like I said, 26 games over 4 seasons, 21 through 24, and primarily as a rotational defensive lineman. Notable games for him, though, in 2022, game against the Rams, Adams recorded 2 sacks and a forced fumble, which highlighted his disruptive abilities. So he is available to make some plays, which we need him to do. Now he has a new opportunity with the Detroit Lions, hoping he can add some depth and be a solid role player to what is definitely a pancake battered defensive line. You're in trouble. So 3-time Pro Bowl safety Jamal Adams signed with the Lions this weekend. Now he is promoted to the practice squad, but he is supposed to be elevated, in no time. He should be elevated to the main roster as quickly as possible. So with that expectation, though, according to Dan Campbell, he says this will be good. Getting Jamal here, we'll see if there's a place for him. It just gives us options. It gives us options, according to Dan Campbell. Now, I'm surprised that he said if there's a place for him, because I said this weekend, and I was planning on going live, but it just didn't happen. I kind of see what this Lions defense could potentially be doing here. For a while there, I said that there was no reason why we couldn't have 3 safety looks more often and go big with 6 defensive backs more often. And I still think that we can. We might be down to 2 linebackers majority of the time in this defense, which means that we're going to have to bring in a bigger safety that can play in a hybrid role, which I believe Jamal Adams could play. I believe that Brian Branch could play in a hybrid role down as a linebacker. If he was healthy, I mean, there's possibility for him, to play in a hybrid role. So I'm looking for this defense to really step up and make some changes this week and possibly next week. Maybe not so much this week because it's a short week, but possibly next week, where you're going to start to see more 3 safety defensive linemen and allow this team to be more versatile with who we're using, plugging and playing, and who we're using on more of our rundown. So our biggest threat is losing the run game. If we start to lose against the run game, that's where this defense is going to struggle. And I think at all costs, this defense has to continue to stop the run. And the only way to do that is with guys like Brian Branch, with guys like Jamal Adams, who was a run stuffer in his day. So coming from a Seattle Seahawks type of defense, though, the majority of his career, he was known for that. He was known for getting his nose dirty and getting in there and plugging up the holes. Guys got it. And then I think the most important thing here is what's in his head, right? And how can he help our guys develop even that much more? So a guy like Terrion Arnold, huge sponge, right? He's going to be a big time sponge from Jamal Adams. Just listen, watch, learn from what Jamal does. There's a reason why he's one of the better guys in the league, man. Different position, sure, but that doesn't mean that, DB is a DB is a DB. You still got to learn the same techniques. I think that he's more of a unique pickup that allows us to be more versatile, utilizing the defense that we haven't been using a whole lot this season, which is more of a 5-2-4. Let's get into the last guy that the Lions brought in. I love the fact that we brought in Quan Alexander. This guy is going to be able to do some damage. He's already said he's ready to go to war for the Lions. In high school, Alexander missed most of his 2011 senior campaign with a knee injury after posting 144 tackles, 17 sacks, and 6 forced fumbles with 3 recoveries as a junior in 2010. As a junior, he put up those numbers. He was chosen as a finalist for the High School Buckus Award. He was given annually to the nation's top linebacker. He was also named to the 2011 ESPN All-Alabama football team and was a Class 6A, it's a big school, All-State football team honorable mention, which, going up against the biggest schools, that's a lot of football athletes, a lot of football players and athletes that he's going up against. He attended LSU from 2012 to 2014 as a true freshman. He played in 7 games with 2 starts with 12 tackles. And then as a sophomore, he started 9 of the 13 games, finished the season with 65 tackles. And then as a junior, he led the team with 92 tackles, 1.5 sacks. And after his junior season, he decided to enter the 2015 NFL draft. Now, he was one of 33 linebackers to enter the draft, right, or to go through the scouting combine at least, where he completed all of the necessary drills and finished second. Out of all linebackers, he finished second in the 40-yard dash, 6th in the bench press and short shuttle, and 9th in the 3-cone. He was ranked as the 2nd best outside linebacker prospect in the NFL draft by Charles Davis. He was ranked the 6th best outside linebacker in the NFL draft by NFLDraftScout.com, and he was ranked the 7th best linebacker by Matt Miller of NFLDraftScout.com. In the 2015 draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected Alexander 124th in the 4th round, and that was after the Bucs moved up to take him. He was the 11th linebacker drafted in 2015. So I don't know how he slid from being the 2nd overall, or the 6th overall, or even the 9th overall, all the way down to 11th linebacker taken. But he quickly made an impact. His speed, his aggressive playmaking ability were very evident from the start in Tampa in 2015. So he entered the training camp in 2015. He competed for a job as he started strong side linebacker against Danny Lanzana. And after performing fairly well, he was then moved to middle linebacker. And he competed for a role starting next to Bruce Carter. Head coach Lovie Smith at the time named Alexander the starting middle linebacker as a rookie alongside Lavonte David and Lanzana. Now, Alexander finished his rookie here with 93 combined tackles, 59 solo, 9 pass deflections, 3 sacks, and 2 interceptions in 12 games and 12 starts. He was named to the PFWA All-Rookie team. In 2016, he started the season opener at the Falcons and recorded 17 combined tackles and a sack in that victory. 2 weeks later, he made 7 combined tackles and returned an interception off of Case Keenum, 38 yards for his first NFL touchdown. And that was a loss, though, to that team. It was a loss to whoever Case Keenum was playing that year. And then week 8, Alexander recorded his season high 14 solo tackles and broke up a pass. That was an overtime loss to the Raiders. And then week 15, he recorded a career high, get this, 21 combined tackles, 11 solo. Again, in a loss, though. They just think the Bucs couldn't find a way to win. Alexander finished his professional season, or second professional season, ranked 4th in the league in tackles with 145. He also had 7 pass deflections, 3 sacks, and an interception in 16 games. He earned an overall PFF grade of 77.3, which was the most improved second-year player ever for PFF. In 2017, Alexander finished 3rd with 97 tackles, 4 pass deflections, and a career-high 3 interceptions in 12 games and starts. And then in January, he was named to his first Pro Bowl, and then he replaced the injured Seattle Seahawks middle linebacker Bobby Wagner. But it was 2018 when things kind of started to wobble a little bit for him. The wheels just kind of started to flutter a little bit. Alexander started the first 6 games of the season before suffering an ACL injury in week 7. He was placed on injured reserve in October of that season. He finished his season with 45 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 pass deflections, and a sack in 6 games that season. Injury troubles kind of continued. Unfortunately, a torn ACL in 2018 had derailed him, right? Derailed his trajectory. But since then, he's really battled various injuries and played for multiple teams, the 49ers, the Saints, the Jets, the Steelers. And while he's known for his flashes, of his old self from time to time, consistency has kind of been an issue for Quan, but I mean, I guess it depends on who's watching, right? And what you're seeing. In 2019 with the 49ers, he was signed to a 4-year, $54 million contract. Week 1, he went after Jameis Winston with a helmet-to-helmet hit. Prior to being ejected, though, he made 3 tackles. And then in the next game against Cincinnati, he recorded his first interception of the season off Andy Dalton. And then in week 7 against the Redskins, he forced a fumble on Adrian Peterson. And then 2 weeks later against Arizona Cardinals, he left the eventual 28-25 road victory with an apparent chest injury. The next day, though, Alexander was diagnosed with a torn pec, and then he was placed on injured reserve. So back-to-back rough seasons as far as injuries. He did come back, though. He helped the 49ers defeat both the Vikings and the Packers to advance to the Super Bowl, where he recorded a tackle and a pass deflection in the loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in that Super Bowl. And in 2020 through 21, he was a Saint. He was traded to the Saints in exchange for a 5th-round pick and, get this, Kiko Alonso. Pretty good player, Kiko was. So the Saints obviously got a good deal there. He was named a starter in Week 10, started the next 7 games before suffering yet again another torn Achilles in Week 16, placed on injured reserve December 28. He was then released by the Saints in March of next year during the new league year, and on August 3rd, the Saints actually brought him back and signed him to a 1-year deal, and then he was placed again on injured reserve in September of that year with an elbow injury. He was activated on October 25th, and then his contract was up the next league year. Why am I saying all this? So injuries kind of followed him the last couple of years, and I don't really think it's going to impact him a ton. But just last season with the Steelers, he suffered yet again another torn Achilles in November. It was just November, a couple days ago. He's only a year out from this Achilles injury, and he's already played a few games this season. So far this season, on November 2, Week 9, against the Titans, he made the game-sealing interception against Will Levis. And then on November 12, against the Packers, that is when he suffered the torn Achilles. And so now he's back. The Denver Broncos brought him back on the practice squad this season. He saw action in 3 games this year. He had 8 tackles and a forced fumble, and now he's a Detroit Lion. So a lot about Quan Alexander's past and where he's been and what he's doing. He's had 7 major injuries in his career. But I still think that Quan Alexander is going to be a player that really slots in immediately. He's got history with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn. He knows this defense. The terminology, like Dan said, might be a little bit different, but the stylistic component to this defense and what he's used to is fairly the same. So I think that he's going to be someone that can help us right away. I'm just a little worried about the injury concerns here and his age that go along with it. 3 Achilles injuries in a career, that's usually career ending. But he's back. I think that tells you something. The fact that he's come back from 3 of them tells you the kind of player and person that he is. Yeah, and bringing in a guy like Quan, I mean, he can help hold it down. I mean, I think that, we're down to Jack, Ben, and Trevor, which, look, that's a good 3. I mean, they've been around this defense. They've played a lot of ball, but look, Trevor is still susceptible to, I don't know, how do I say it? He's susceptible to trickery, I guess, if you will. And sometimes he bites down a little bit too quick on the RPO. And that's what I worry about with Trevor is the RPO and him getting caught up, where he's biting down a little bit too hard. And then next thing you know, the ball just goes around him. So that is my one concern with the linebacker group right now. I'm not concerned about Jack. I'm not concerned about Jack and his leadership and the fact that, he's really playing well.